Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Coffee with Convery. As part of our Legacy in Motion Black History series, I'm honored to welcome Chris Dutter to this show. Chris is a visionary leader, an advocate, a changemaker dedicated to fostering inclusivity and creating positive social impact. Chris is the executive director and co-founder of the Get Real movement, a nonprofit tackling homophobia and promoting inclusivity since 2011. Through authentic conversations and impactful campaigns like the To My Great Self video, Get Real has transformed lives across Canada. Beyond his advocacy, Chris has worked in branding, advertising, and nonprofits, collaborating with brands like Nintendo, CIBC, and Coca-Cola. As a Black man adopted from South America, his journey of embracing identity and allyship has inspired many. So grab your coffee as we dive into the Get Real mission and impact and welcome Chris to Coffee with Convery. Welcome, Chris.
Thanks so much, Brian. So nice to be here.
Super excited to have you today. Why don't we get started with a few sort of rapid fire questions just to kind of warm us up? So, what are your pronouns?
My pronouns are he, him.
Awesome. Superpower.
Superpower would be my focus. My power of being able to do long tasks, and it's really helped me. It helped me in university, and it's helped me in my professional life as well.
Awesome. So, because this job is, because this podcast has actually got a lot of young people following, a lot of people kind of going through those transitions from high school to college, college to their first job, or maybe right into the trades. I'm always want to ask our guests, like, what was your very first job? What got you started? And could you tell us a little bit about it?
My very first job, if you don't count babysitting, was I was a janitor at a church, and so that was in high school, and yeah, and it was after school. I think again one of those jobs that really taught me the value of work being work, and it's not always the most fun, but you can make it the best that it can be. And it was, a job I did by myself, after school on the weekends. And yeah, again, I think it just really showed me the value of, hard work and, um, yeah, I guess, it's something that I remember and I never find myself feeling like above any job or any task, from jobs like that.
So important, so important. And thanks for sharing that. So, I want to get right to it and start talking about the Get Real movement. And back in 2011, I know you started this. You and your friends started this. When what inspired you to take that first step? And thinking about some folks who may be really inspired by your story, what advice do you have for them if they want to get started doing something meaningful like this? Where do they begin? Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So we started Get Real at Western University. We were orientation week volunteers, mentoring first year students coming to our university for the first time, especially during that first welcome week. And we were finding that our approach to hearing derogatory language, so homophobia, transphobia, racism, etc., which we knew was going to make already nervous first year students, feel that much more excluded or anxious on campus, afraid to be who they were. We found that our approach to those conversations was really hitting home. So we were young, we were close in age.
Yeah.
We came from a friends first perspective. We were there to teach. We were not there to shame. We were there to really like bring people in and make sure everyone was having a great first week. And we also weren't afraid to be vulnerable with our own stories. And that really was one of the big things that hit home was, being real with our own experiences. I would share experiences, like you mentioned, growing up, adopted, being Black myself in predominantly white neighborhood, facing discrimination, racism myself, and then also experiences of, myself being an ally as well, having friends come out to me in high school and in university and sort of learning to be an ally to other people as well. And so those were just very authentic, organic conversations, sometimes one-to-one, sometimes, speaking to a whole floor of the students, if we heard something. And they were really having a positive impact. Lots of students coming up to us saying that this had changed their perspective or, made them think about things in a different way. Or we would hear students calling each other out, sort of the next night, um, which was really positive if they heard language like that. And then on the flip side, tons of students, coming up to us saying that it was really meaningful hearing, us speak to those conversations because they felt that much more, comfortable in who they were.
Yeah.
Lots of students coming out to us, lots of students just disclosing things to us or saying that, they felt that much more at home because of those conversations. So those two things were extremely meaningful, and it was just a good thing that we cared a lot about doing.
That's
And then the idea was, could we take that approach and all of those learnings about communication and connecting with young people on these topics, which can be difficult to navigate and delicate, can we take those learnings and create a workshop or presentation style program for our old high schools and middle schools? Because we never had anything like that growing up. And we really wish that we had. So that was the inspiration behind Get Real, behind the organization. If I could give any advice to any young people out there, um, kind of like we talked about at the career conference, those small actions really can go a long way. And starting from those small actions, if you're doing those things just because, that's the best place to start. And if you're seeing the impact, that's the other piece that you need, right? If you're doing those things that you care, that's great. And even if those conversations never went beyond those conversations, they would still have been worth it. Speaking to one person, opening one person's mind is still worth it. Or, saying something to my floor and having one student feel more confident in who they were because of that, or more safe, that's worth it. So that's a really good starting place. If you're just doing things because you care and you have passion for doing that, don't underestimate that and don't devalue that just because it seems small. It really is needed. It's like 2025, wow, more than ever. The second piece is, if you're seeing that positive impact, that's really where there is the potential to scale. If you're, hearing from the people that you're affecting, or, seeing sort of a change in, the environment, or you're seeing some of those goals that you have be realized. And for us, it was, can we help students unlearn, discriminatory attitudes and change their language? And can we also make, students who are more marginalized in different ways feel safer and, more welcome at school? If you are starting to see those outcomes be achieved, then you have a decision to make, which is, you can just keep doing what you're doing on a small scale, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. And kudos to everyone who's doing that just in their own day-to-day lives. But if you do want to take that next step and try to grow something into something more, an initiative or a student group, or even a full-fledged nonprofit or charity that's more formal and more rigorous, also more power to you. And we also need more of that in the world. I would say don't be afraid, to try. The worst case scenario is, it's tricky and it doesn't pan out like you thought it might, which is true to so much in life. But more often than not, if you really care about this and you're seeing positive impact firsthand, more often than not, other people are going to care about it too. And so putting yourself out there and sharing what you're trying to build, really can pay off. And you just never know until you start talking about it, until you start, you know, um, taking those next steps, and which is really just putting yourself out there. We did a Facebook event for our first event. It was like February in London, Ontario. It was a blizzard out, and the room was packed. There were people like sitting on the floor because there were no chairs. And so that was a really positive signal. Like, wow, a lot of people, we just said we would love to take, this is our goal. We would love to take these experiences that we've had as O-Week leaders and turn it into a workshop. And just putting that up on Facebook, so many people saw that and went out of their way, left their houses at like 7:30 p.m. at night to come to campus where the meeting was, in the cold, to hear us out and to say, like, this is awesome. I would love to be a part of this too. So, then you're looking for, okay, are there people out there that are my people? Are there people who have the same passion and the same vision that I do? And then from there, from there, it gets a little bit more complicated in terms of like structure and things like that. I would say do what you know,
Yeah.
which we definitely did with like our neon pink hats for branding and for fundraising and running like small, fundraising events. Videos was something that I knew, and that's how To My Grade 7 Self happened. So do what you know, like lean into your own skills, whether they're graphic design or public speaking or whatnot. Don't be afraid to learn new things for sure. And then also ask for help, like ask for advice. There's lots of really inspiring nonprofits, charities, social initiatives that are out there, and do some digging. Are there other people in the space that are doing similar work or complementary work? And don't be afraid to reach out and say like, hey, here's the experiences that I have. I think they're really meaningful. I really care about them. I think they're making an impact, and I think there's a chance for them to grow into something bigger. I'd love some advice. And you might be surprised who reaches out and can share some advice on some of those more technical pieces, like incorporating as a nonprofit if that's your goal, or
Yeah.
reaching out to different partners if that's your goal, or getting into schools if that's your goal. So yeah, I would say for the next steps is you know, find your people and start talking about your idea. Lean into what you already know how to do in terms of like actionable next steps. And then don't be afraid to ask for help or ask for guidance. And yeah, there's good people out there who really are inspired by young people who are going for it and trying to make the world a better place with their own initiative and perspective. And I'm one of them, and I know you're one of them. And there's lots of people out there, so don't hesitate to reach out for help.
That's amazing. So much insights and thoughts there. Thank you so much for sharing all that. And what do you think it is about the Get Real movement that resonates so well with students and young adults? Like even the first Facebook where everyone came out in a snowstorm at 7:30. Is it what is this? I don't want to say secret sauce, but what is the motivation that you're thinking young people are seeking when they come to these things or looking for?
Yeah, so for us, I think again, if you're able to be going back to your impact and your passion, like those two ingredients, people will be drawn to that and they will understand. If you're trying to build something because you hypothetically think it will be a good thing. That there, there's nothing wrong with that, but you definitely want to do some testing. For us, it was hypothetical in terms of like going into schools, but it wasn't hypothetical because we were having those conversations with students who were like a year older than a grade 12 student, and we were like seeing firsthand the results. So those things really spoke to, when we were building Get Real and first talking about it. And then I think in terms of Get Real, like, we passed 1 million students a couple years back. We're on track to reach 1.5 million students soon. Thank you. And it's been an amazing journey. And we've seen so much incredible, um, so many incredible moments, so many milestones. We've spoken to students all across the country, so many different demographics. And it's definitely been a lot of learnings. We've definitely made mistakes. We're always tweaking. We're always trying to, improve and make the program better. But underneath all of that, our sort of passion and drive for the work, and which is really genuine and really just comes from a place of caring about it and caring about those outcomes is still there. And people are really drawn to that. Because there's nothing like seeing someone who's really excited or really passionate about, what they do. I mean, that it's hard not to be like, infected by their enthusiasm, right?
Right.
And then the other thing is really driven by how did we get to that impact in the first place? And that's also something that has been, a North Star, and also something that has been important to keep coming back to, even as the world shifted in different ways. Like Get Real, even like from day one, right? It wasn't about shaming. It was about, building bridges. That's the name of our mini documentary. It was about reaching out, creating allies, bringing people in, getting people from A to B, while at the same time supporting marginalized young people. And that is opening someone's mind is a really delicate and complicated thing to do in a lot of ways, but it's also very doable
Hmm.
and that's what we were seeing. And so, it's keeping those same principles in mind, relatively young speakers who are relatable, who are diverse, who have the confidence to get up there and share their personal story and be vulnerable, which is one of those big secret sauce pieces, at least for our workshop
Absolutely.
program and the public speaking element. So just staying true to all of those pieces. And then again, with the approach, it's education, not trying to shame, not trying to push people farther away. There's enough of that going on in the world. I think that's why we've really resonated coast to coast
Big
in so many
time.
different demographics. It's an approach that really there's there's a space for everyone at Get Real. There's a space for everyone just in the world in terms of like these fights, and we really do need allies. It's definitely, it's for in all of these different fights for a better future. Like it needs everybody, and we can learn a lot from each other. Our differences are things to be celebrated, of course, and not marginalized or othered.
Or
But we
mocked.
also, yeah, or mocked, but we also are a lot more alike than we are different.
Yeah.
And, if we can, find that kind of common ground and reach out to someone and bring them in and leave someone feeling better and more connected after we left, that's a really big win, especially in a world where there's so much division and so much polarization. So that's been a really underpinning guiding light for us. And again, that just goes back to like our very first, not losing sight of why we thought this was going to be a good idea in the first place, and those first genuine connections that we had. So yeah, I think there's a lot of different pieces, but I think really, keeping that passion and staying true to, why we started in the first place.
Yeah, staying true to what you've done and growing over time. I mean, I feel very blessed to have met you and been part of a lot of this. And,
You too.
when I think about it, I'm like, even as you've matured with all of your offerings and the things you're doing, it's like this continuation is so needed nowadays, even more than ever. Like you started even when you started 2025. I mean, things we're seeing now, I just I don't even know where they're coming from. Well, we kind of know where they're coming from, but it's not a good thing. So I'm going to shift gears 1 minute just to talk about the fact that it is Black History Month, and maybe from a personal reflection perspective. I know we had the chance to talk recently about your trip and some things around your background, but I wanted to ask you, as a Black man being adopted from South America, what does this month, Black History Month, mean to you really personally? And what do you think people of that identify or self-identify as Black can maybe use this time to think about and reflect on, going forward? So yeah, what does it mean to you? Just curious.
Yeah, this is a great question. I think there's two things. So one is the history component, and it is sad a lot of the things that are happening right now where there's a lot of forces in play really pushing kind of this erasure of, let's act like none of this stuff happened. Let's just like, go back to how things were where nothing was acknowledged and, there were no attempts to make things better or to make things more equitable. Which has a huge historical component, like generational wealth and you could go on for a whole hour just about that. But so I think the history piece is really important to me, at least. I love learning about history. I think
Mm,
it's just incredibly eye-opening, incredibly heartbreaking in a lot of ways, but also very, very motivating. And so for me, that helps me be better informed about the anti-racism work that we're doing right now at Get Real. And also I just get really excited and inspired to share little pieces of, history and, anecdotes and because they're really important. Like so many things can be learned from, looking backwards if we don't want to repeat the same mistakes. And also if we want to feel proud of, our heritage and people who came before us and, feel that connection. I always find that really heartening as well, especially in difficult times. I think a lot of people would agree that 2025 is, we're in challenging times in a lot of ways. So, it can be, again, it can be heartbreaking looking backwards, but it's also can be really motivating and also very, um, inspiring to think back because people have gone through incredibly challenging times before in terms of facing racism, in terms of facing all sorts of challenges. But there's always been that hope. People have persevered. We're all part of that journey. And,
mhm.
not all of us are still here, but those of us who are, I try to take that as very motivating to sort of do my small part in building off of those efforts to try to make the world,
Absolutely.
more
Yeah.
equitable and break down barriers. And that kind of brings me to the future piece. I also think like Black History Month, I love that, so much of the conversations are around, present day leaders and
Hmm.
initiatives and organizations and young people and looking to the future, because that is equally as important. Taking all of the learnings from past and all the insights that we can gain from those, inspiring stories and inspiring leaders, but then also applying them to our own lives, present day, and where can we support? What can we be doing
Absolutely.
right now to make tomorrow that much better? So I really love Black History Month and that it, really is a chance to celebrate and amplify those stories. Obviously, it'd be great if those stories were amplified, all year round, but the reality is Black History Month is February every year, and that's an amazing time for schools and organizations and businesses and individuals to just gain that much more access to a lot of these inspiring stories and histories from the past and all those insights, and then also gain that much more awareness of amazing Black companies, small business owners, initiatives, nonprofits. Current issues, that Black people are up against, and how they can help today, to make
That's
tomorrow a little
great.
better. So yeah, it's a incredibly meaningful month, and any month like this, Pride Month,
Yeah.
Indigenous Peoples Day, International Women's Day, all these different months and days, incredibly important for all of those reasons.
Absolutely, absolutely. Thank you so much for sharing your insights on what that means to you. And one of the powerful things that I know you've brought to the table is my grade seven self videos that I have had the pleasure of doing as well, and thinking back and then watching a bunch of them this past weekend. It's really incredible. What kind of how did you get there to think about like that creation of that approach, and what has been from the response from people that have seen these videos in the storytelling advocacy way? Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So that goes back to what I was saying, lean into what you know. So that was back in our first year of running Get Real. That was my sort of end of year project as sort of co-coordinator of the club. My other co-coordinator, Sophie, ran an amazing event at the end of our first year, and that was her end of year project. And so, but I had a camcorder, and I was filming a lot that year for memories. This is my last year at university. Um, and so I really loved
Camcorder, you're
video.
now starting to date yourself even though you're young.
Totally, yeah, Sony camcorder. Um, and
Had to
you
throw
know,
it in, sorry.
yeah, absolutely. And I love country music, which is also kind of funny. In terms of Black History Month, I'm usually one of the only black guys at a country concert. But there's more and more
I
of us,
love
which is
that.
great.
I love that.
Um, but yeah, there's a song by Brad Paisley called "Letter to Me," and I remember just thinking, wow, what a great concept to write a letter to your younger self about all the different things that you're proud that you did, all the different things that you regret that you wish you'd done differently. So many lessons that you wish you could, reach back in time and tell your younger self. I thought it was just such a powerful concept. I also thought it was super accessible because it is really universal. Anyone can think back and, for both of those things they're proud of that they did and things that, they, wish they'd done differently. So that was the concept. And I thought, what a great way to talk about, issues like combating discrimination, that wouldn't be preachy because you're not just having a bunch of people on screen telling strangers what they should be doing without knowing anything about them. Instead, it's much more reflective and inwards. You're just talking to yourself, so it's not preachy at all. If you want to take things from, if you can relate to different stories, amazing, and that's the strength of it. But the other big strength of it is it's not preachy because it's just talking to your old self. So that was a really powerful concept. We brought friends together. It was filmed by someone who's now, famous, filmmaker and director, but it was just a student at the time. And, all people who just really believe in the concept. And it was really heartwarming. And it brings up a lot of emotions, that kind of reflecting. And I remember there were points where like I teared up, and I remember my friend Adam teared up. But then there was a point where my friend Hillary really cried and but kept going, and she kept going through her letter, and like it was amazing. And that was, I knew that this was something that
Special.
was really going to hit home. And yeah, it's something special. We were capturing something special. And it was an amazing group of people who are all, continue to be fans and supporters and even still a part of Get Real today, in different ways. And it really went viral. And I think people really responded to just how raw it was and how accessible it was. Because again, people can, everyone can put themselves in that headspace of, yeah, if I look back on my life, there's so many things that, I would be proud of myself of, and I would give
Yeah.
myself a hug, at a younger age. I would say, encouraging things like it's going to be okay and this and that way. And then so many things where I would say, you really should, I wish you'd known this, 5 years earlier. I wish you'd behaved differently. I wish you'd, done things differently. I wish you'd been more of an ally. I wish you'd been more, of a support. Um, so yeah, I think the vulnerability and how raw it was, and just the accessibility that it applies to so many people, really touched a lot of people. It went viral. It earned us our first invites to speak in schools, our first national news coverage, CTV and Global News. They tweeted it out and they came up and did stories on us. So it really, helped take Get Real to that next level. From a very organic place. Again, we just made it for I just made it for my old principal. So again, going back to those small actions, even if she just shown that to the school, that would have been really meaningful. But in the end, we've ended up showing it to hundreds of thousands of students. We do it in different capacities. We do it for a career conference, like you mentioned, where it's a bit more of like a career focus.
Yeah.
But yeah, really, really powerful concept. And it's a great exercise also we do in the schools. We add in a Dear Future Me. So Dear Past Me, Dear Future Me. And the Dear Future Me component is very hopeful. It's, what would you say to your future self? I hope that you're, doing this. I hope that you're happy. I hope that you're successful in this. I hope that you've, finally told your parents this. I hope that you're, pursuing your passion still. Really, really hopeful and inspiring notes from students. So yeah, that's definitely one of the best things that we ever did. And
Yeah,
it's
it's
it's been
impactful.
really, yeah, it's been awesome to also do it in different capacities with different people. And yeah, and so thank you so much for being part of it as well.
Oh yeah, no, and I think about when you were talking earlier about the relatability of the Get Middle movement, and then this component. I think these days, one of the things I learned through my career too is and was being okay being vulnerable and taking the power of the room to really lift everyone up. And there's so many ways we're raised that being vulnerable is seen as a sign of weakness, but on the flip side, you actually learn so much when you actually say, well, I'm not really the expert in this, or whatever it is. And so I think that relatability for everything you're doing is incredible. And hopefully a few folks can maybe even take this opportunity to tell themselves their seventh grade story from listening to this podcast and learn something. So I hope that happens. Thinking about building empathy and supporting friends, which is key to you and how you came about with a lot of what you're doing. Um, I think many young people want to, support their friends. I think they think about it, but they're maybe not sure how, or they're afraid they'll offend them, or, what are some powerful, like, kind of ways to kind of get your head around helping someone who might be going through a tough time?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think the number one thing that I try and do is just model the behavior and also sort of the permission
Yeah.
for people to open up. And so for me, that looks like a couple different things. One is the like proactive, like reaching out to people saying like, hey, how are you doing? When I'm with people, asking people how they're doing and, you know, checking in. Um, Something I find helps is even um, getting, I don't want to say creative, but like just, switching it up in terms of different like environments. So, it's one thing I think for me to ask, a friend how they're doing in front of their partner and, or in a big group. But if I maybe think that this person might be going through a tough time, maybe going for like a walk or a coffee with like just them and kind of sitting down. I find that trying to mix it up like that, those times, sometimes you ask like, how are things going? You can get much more of a conversation going and someone might feel a lot more inclined to open up and say how they're actually feeling.
Absolutely.
Um, and then a big one for sure is, you know, being careful about what you say. I mean, it's kind of like a get real message in terms of inclusive language,
No, that's great.
but it really does apply to like a lot of the mental health pieces because, you know, you'd be surprised. Well, one example just would get real. I remember my friend Adam, one of his like to my grade seven self things that he said to his younger self was that his friend came out to him, a lot later in life. And he thought back to like all the times when he used, sort of homophobic slurs or said that's gay or like, and when he talked to his friend about it, he felt really heartbroken because that's never truly how he felt. But that conversation with his friend, it was really clear that his friend would have told him a lot sooner and kind of kept that bottled up inside because of that language. And so that's like a really, it's something that's really easy to overlook, but at the same time, it's something that's really easy to correct. And so, especially if you're around someone who's struggling, but again, you never know who's struggling. It's so like on the surface, you never know. So
Yep.
a good just default is, if something comes up in the news or you're watching TV with someone, etc., like the more judgmental you are, or, especially anything related to mental health or someone who's also going through a tough time, or, anything related to slurs, etc. Like if you are someone that is constantly making someone feel on edge or that you're judging other people, even if you're not judging your friend per se, that might give someone the perception that, I don't really know if I want to tell Chris this. Like, I don't really know where his head's going to be at around this or how it's going to be received or because yeah, and so I think it's already so hard for people to open up
Yeah.
to other people for a million reasons. Um, and so even if you do that, it might not happen, but at the very least, you can like eliminate that as a barrier. Um, and then, I guess the last piece I would say is sometimes opening up yourself can kind of start things off. And it's interesting you mentioned the, being adopted. I remember we have this activity, Grateful versus Challenging, which is fantastic. It's in our workshops, it's anonymous. we share, speakers, things that are challenging in our life that we're grateful for. We thought of it as a great way to talk about privilege, again, without being too preachy. The grateful piece is more of those privileges. The challenges are, more of those adversities relating to, identity or systemic barriers,
Hmm.
in a really kind of human way. And it's an amazing activity. And all we find, we see like teachers tearing up, hearing what their students write down, all across the board. It's fantastic for a lot of different reasons. Um, but one of those pieces, so I started mentioning, being adopted and some of the different pieces that came with that in that Grateful for a Challenging Activity. And as soon as I started mentioning that, I started having tons of questions and tons of students, also talking about different family situations and,
Yep.
different families that look different. Also students talking about being adopted and things like that. And so it was really interesting. It really was like a very like small example, but that really showed me, the more, you can talk about something, if you're comfortable talking about something, that can be a
Yep.
door open. And it might not
Great
happen right
approach.
away, but someone might listen to that and process it. And, I've had this too, where, a couple days later or, weeks later, someone thinks about it and they come back and they say, you were talking about that. And, I actually have something similar that, that's been tough or and because then you've been vulnerable and you've kind of put yourself out there, but also like it might show that you get it in some way, even just a little bit.
No, that's a,
um
yeah.
yeah, and then I guess the last, I mean, there's a lot of different, there's so many different great pieces. I would say Jack.org is an awesome, it's called the Be There certificate. It's great. It's like 5 different key steps, in terms of like being there for someone if they're, experiencing mental illness and,
Yeah.
they're disclosing things to you. Awesome resource. Um, but a great piece there, that's also a great piece just in life is trying not to like fix a problem like right away.
Mm.
You can ask someone if they are like, opening up to you. You can ask them like, are you looking for like solutions or are you just like looking to like share
Share.
if you want? I think if you don't ask that question or if you just want to guess, I would guess by just listening and asking questions, asking like, is there anything I can do? As sort of that first step instead of trying to fix the problem. I say this as not as someone who's an expert at that. I often try to I
Yeah.
have to remember to do that because when I share my struggles with, my wife or with Marley, my business partner, or people in my life, I am looking for their thoughts. But that's that love language. Just because that's what I want doesn't mean that's what someone else wants. And so that's a
Interesting.
really good thing too, right? Just like just listen, be super open. Don't
Yeah.
have like a don't rush to judge or to make any kind of assumption or anything like that. Just be super open and listen and um, ask sort of questions if that seems natural or and ask how you can support is a big one. Someone might come straight up come out and say like, I'd love, what, moving forwards, yeah, like you know, I'd love to go to activities that don't involve alcohol as much or something.
Right.
You never know if you put it out there, like, is there anything that I can do or anything that might help? There might not be in the moment, but it never hurts to ask. And then, obviously, like we tell everyone in terms of like, more in our inclusivity workshop in terms of coming out, but of course, never share, if someone's disclosing something, never share that with anybody else, right? That's
Yeah. It's
something,
not your news
really,
for sure.
really, yeah, like that really, really keep that trust. Yeah, those would be some things that have worked for me. Yeah, and then also don't forget to seek support yourself. In terms of like that, be there, jack.org resource, or talking to a mental health professional, or just sort of looking things up online. Yeah, that also helps in terms of like your own supporting yourself and making sure that you also have an understanding if someone says I'm going through psychosis right now, or I might have this mental illness. It never hurts to sort of read up on trusted resources.
Super informative. And the one thing that I really, too, when I think about what you're saying, the idea that, opening up yourself sometimes can actually make that person feel more comfortable that they're free to do so as well. And I think the other thing too is the response too, right? Because sometimes we can be good listeners, or we need to be better listeners, and then sometimes our response can be, I'll say, off-putting. So for example, like, if someone's coming out and coming out for the first time, and then their friend goes, "Oh, we were waiting for you. We always knew you were gay," and it's like, "Oh, great." right?
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
that's not the greatest response,
yeah.
right? Because and I know plenty of people have gotten that one, including myself. And it's not like you feel ready to talk about other things, right? You're like, oh, so how long you been thinking about this about me? It's like,
Yeah, so oh sweet. So everyone's been talking about this and
about me
judging
coming
and
back. That's great,
yeah.
So I think the response back is also super important too, to that point, right?
Yeah, that's an awesome point. Like even acknowledging saying, I really appreciate you. I'm really glad you told me,
Right.
and I'm really glad that you felt that you could tell me and like keeping the door open and if you ever need to if you ever want to talk about this again, I'm here and I'll like, you can trust me. I'll never say anything like, yeah, just like acknowledging those pieces and, because it's really hard to talk about certain things. And so,
100%. And then if you
yeah,
get that reaction, you're like, oh, okay. Well, let's flip to this other. I really want to talk about, first of all, your third annual virtual career conference was amazing. I thought it was
thank you.
amazing.
Thank you
You
so much
guys,
for wouldn't have been possible without you. So thank you so much.
that I feel very happy that you include me. And it has been a pleasure to see how you all have grown this thing to become what it is today. And the sky's the limit, man. I think it's just going to be incredible. Do you want to share a little few of the highlights of what it went on to maybe to some of the people so maybe they can even think about the next one? And I also know I believe you have some things going on even for Black History Month as well in support. So maybe you could share some of that if people are interested in, you know, tapping in. Obviously, they can go to your website, but talk about the conference, talk about what's coming.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, the conference has been an amazing experience to build. It's just been incredible having you part of it for all 3 years. So really, the insight there was we know that the stat support that building diverse teams, attracting diverse talent has so many amazing business imperatives. It makes for stronger teams, stronger decision making, better bottom line. Less pitfalls and blind spots that can lead to like costly PR. A lot of things that a lot of people right now are trying to deny, but the stats are there. The McKinsey and the Forbes reports consistently year over year show that. And so we know that, and that's a lot of what we talk to with our corporate partners and with our corporate clients when we run our corporate workshops. But then on the flip side, we also know that a lot of businesses don't always know where to look for diverse candidates, diverse talent. And so we saw a gap there. Um, and then, I mean, the other piece is, for young people who face, one or more barriers in the workforce due to, race or gender identity or orientation or, different barriers, it can be nerve-wracking to, put yourself out there, especially for different industries, because of sort of their kind of reputation as maybe like more homogenous. And also, for a lot of young people facing different barriers, there just are less opportunities, or, more barriers right from the start of their lives. And so, for us, that's always been something that we've really loved to get real is really looking for to provide as many opportunities as we can for diverse young people, whether it's like on our team and in our employment or, through our events. So this really blended, some of those gaps and, also that mission of ours. So it's fantastic. We invite, 100 plus young people, diverse young people from across the country. It's a free day. It's completely virtual, so it's really accessible in that way. And it's a full day of professional development. So we invite all of our different corporate partners. There's an amazing professional development session at the start of the day to kick off the day that you and I took part in, and Tiffany Human, globally recognized career coach, all about interview skills, resume building, LinkedIn strategy, networking, really fantastic skills that young people can start applying, today to just give them that leg up. And then there's five different panels. There's recruiters and hiring managers, marketing and advertising, nonprofits and charities, startups and entrepreneurship, and DEI in the corporate space. And this is a really great chance for students to hear from, diverse leaders in their field. And we look to select panelists who they themselves, if they were students, would have been eligible to attend our conference, which is really nice. So students get that relatability. They're seeing, women, they're seeing, folks of color, they're seeing folks in the 2S LGBTQ plus community. They're seeing folks, with disabilities, and it's really fantastic in that way because it's really reflective of our student delegate audience as well.
Amazing. Yeah.
And then the end of the day, there's a networking component where students are, able to go from, conference room to conference room over Zoom and meet with different recruiters and different individuals at, different companies. We invite, all of our different, corporate partners and clients, Deloitte, um, General Mills. We host one as Get Real. So fantastic companies and students, get some awesome FaceTime with folks, at those companies. They can find out, what's a day in the life like? Are there any amazing, career job opportunities? And then the chance to build a connection at someone on LinkedIn and, hopefully kind of get that foot in the door that could lead to a future employment opportunity. So yeah, it's a really great day. It happens every January. So we just finished the last one. I think this one was particularly meaningful just with everything going on in the world. It was really reinforced the need for programming that really helps, young people, diverse young people who face, one or more barriers. Also for the panelists, this definitely was the year where we've had the most panelist feedback that this was so meaningful to take part in and to, be passing on, insights and knowledge to the younger generation. Again, with that to my grade seven self, reaching back in time and sharing all the different things that, we wish that we'd known now ourselves into our professional careers and, with that experience and, passing that on to diverse young people who kind of remind us of ourselves, but they're just graduating university or they're still in university or college. And so that was a really amazing kind of response from this year. The student delegates, I mean, were incredible and the response was amazing. I think the other piece was the DEI and the corporate space panel. That specifically, with everything happening right now, and there's some big companies that are walking back DEI initiatives, and there's a lot of like government, things happening in government, especially in the States. With just gutting DEI, programs and blaming things on DEI. It was really meaningful to bring together, four incredible industry leaders who do so much for so many different communities. Al, Sophia, Tim, and Marc Antoine, just incredible people. And it was just really meaningful, I think, this year, especially with everything going on, to have a panel like that and have students be able to, hear themselves from folks who are in the space, what their day to day is, why they have a passion for this work, and also what the impact is, because that is really lost in a lot of these conversations, as especially with yeah, a lot of these kind of buzzwords around, DEI being, the source of problems and, having no benefit, to hear from four individuals about all of the benefits
Benefits.
that DEI has. Yeah, it was really meaningful to do that. So yeah, it was
And
an
you have
amazing
a
event. And
film festival coming? Is that
yes, that's right. Yeah. So we have a Black Film Festival coming up at the end of this month. The career conference just ended at the end of January. Film Festival is amazing. It's also a completely free event. Takes place over the span of 3 nights. So we bring together amazing films, a documentary, a feature, and a number of shorts by Black directors. Special focus on Canadian Black directors. So it's an awesome chance to see some great films that you may not have had access to seeing or may not have had the chance to see. And then there's at the end of the third night, there's our Black Directors panel. And so that is made up of amazing Black directors who are directors from the films from those three screenings. So it's really cool. So you get to watch the films, and then on the third night, you actually get to hear from four different amazing directors who directed some of those different shorts and documentaries. So the lineup's incredible. Yeah, you can find it on our page.
What are the
Jackie,
dates again?
the dates are it's the last Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday in February.
February,
So I
okay.
believe it's the um, 24th, 25th, 26th, if not 25th, 26th, 27th.
I think it's
But it's
25th.
that last, yeah, it's that last
Okay.
February.
I just want to plug it
We
because people might be hearing this
no, of
this
course, yeah.
next week.
Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. It's completely free, and one ticket gets you access to all the nights.
Okay.
So if for some reason you aren't able to attend the feature night, that's also okay. It really is like more the merrier. Allies welcome and encouraged, like we always say. We actually have a snack kit as well, so it's like a red carpet kit, and it comes with some Purdy's chocolate, Poco, which is this amazing Indian snack that my friend Sash developed, who's part of the career conference himself. And then a Groovy, one of their non-alcoholic golden lagers. So there's 90 of those kits. That's really great value. That's just like a fun, like additional, at-home viewing experience.
Yeah.
But yeah, and then for each of the screenings, it's over Zoom. Zoom actually has an amazing platform for screenings. And it's really fun because we have a chat going. So it's a really great community feel. A lot of times the directors themselves are actually in the chat too, which is cool as you're watching their films. And yeah, the lineups are fantastic. We look for really diverse themes as well. Our documentary is Any Other Way, the Jackie Shane story. Incredible. Highly, highly recommend. And Luca, who's one like a Get Real team member, is also director. So that's an amazing story. Origin is our feature, which is incredible as well. And then the shorts are a really wide range. There's some more like advocacy pieces. There's some really cool like sci-fi pieces. An episode of Bria Matt Gets a Life, HBO comedy, and the director of that is the showrunner. Sasha is going to be joining us. Yeah, so it's a really cool event, I have to say.
All right. Well, they
Yeah,
heard
so
it
please
here,
please join
right?
us. Pardon
They
me?
heard it here.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
heard it
yeah, yeah.
here. You got time to sign up. Let's get it out there.
Yeah.
You want to
And
learn
it's
more about
February, it's
food?
cold.
Yeah.
If you want to just like have some cozy nights in
Yep.
and watch some amazing, films by Black directors with a nice community, yeah, just definitely join us. And again, it's completely free and yeah, it's a lot of fun.
Well, Chris, first of all, thank you for so much for sharing your journey and the incredible work that you continue to do for the Get Real movement. Your commitment to fostering inclusion and inspiring change is truly remarkable. I'm so happy to know you. And for our listeners, if you've enjoyed today's episodes, please share this with your network. You can find us at coffeewithconvery.com or your favorite podcast channel. You can also follow us for all our episodes on Instagram. And don't forget, you can also find Chris and his team at the Get Real movement. Chris, thank you again for being here. Much appreciated.
Thanks so much, Brian. Yeah, so such an honor to take part and to know you and get to work with you. And yeah, wishing you an early happy Black History Month.
Thank you so much. And don't forget, this is Coffee with Convery, where we show you that success isn't always about climbing the corporate ladder. Sometimes it's about building your own jungle gym. Have a good one. See you next time.